The dust kicked up from beneath the stagecoach wheels as Madeline Lockhart clutched her meager belongings tighter to her chest, her heart pounding with the terrifying realization that she was $17 short on her fare to San Diego, a sum that might as well have been $1,700 in her current desperate circumstances. "I don't make the rules, miss," the stagecoach driver announced gruffly, his weathered face showing not a trace of sympathy as he brought the vehicle to an abrupt halt. The year was 1872, and mercy was a luxury few could afford in the unforgiving Western territories. "You're 2 days out from San Diego with insufficient funds. I've got a schedule to keep and paying passengers waiting." The 3 other passengers, a banker, a married couple heading west for new opportunities, averted their eyes as the driver climbed down from his perch. Madeline's cheeks burned with shame as she fumbled through her reticule once more, hoping against hope that additional coins might materialize among the few possessions she had salvaged before fleeing Boston. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking slightly. At 22, Madeline had already endured more than her fair share of hardship. The death of her parents to influenza, the betrayal by her fiancé, and now this stranded in the middle of nowhere with nothing but the clothes on her back and a small carpet bag containing all that remained of her former life. "I can pay the rest when we arrive." "I have an uncle in San Diego who heard it all before, miss," the driver interrupted, already reaching for her bag. "If I made exceptions for every sob story, I'd be out of business by Christmas. This is where you get off." Madeline stood frozen as the driver unceremoniously lowered her carpetbag to the dusty road. The other passengers continued to look anywhere but at her. The married woman made a small sound of protest, but was quickly silenced by her husband's warning glance. "But we're miles from anywhere," Madeline protested, panic rising in her throat as she glanced at the desolate landscape stretching in all directions. The California sun beat down mercilessly, and there wasn't a building or water source in sight. "You can't just leave me here too. There's a trading post about 5 miles back that way," the driver said, pointing vaguely eastward as he climbed back onto his seat. "Or you can try your luck with the next coach through. Might be tomorrow, might be 3 days from now." With those callous words, he snapped the reins, and the stagecoach lurched forward, leaving Madeline choking on its dust. She watched in disbelief as her last hope for reaching San Diego disappeared over the horizon, taking with it any chance of the new beginning she had so desperately sought. The silence that followed was absolute. No birds sang in the scrubby trees dotting the landscape, and even the wind seemed to have abandoned her. Madeline sank to her knees beside her carpetbag, tears threatening but refused to fall. She had not survived everything else only to die in the wilderness because of $17. She was still kneeling there 10 minutes later when the sound of approaching hoofbeats made her look up. Squinting against the sun, she saw a lone rider approaching from the direction the stagecoach had been headed. As he drew closer, Madeline could make out a tall figure atop a chestnut stallion, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. Her first instinct was fear. A woman alone on the frontier was vulnerable in ways she didn't care to contemplate. She scrambled to her feet, grasping her carpetbag tightly as she considered her limited options. Running would be pointless. Hiding, impossible in the open terrain. The rider slowed as he approached, and Madeline caught sight of a weathered, sun-bronzed face with a strong jaw shadowed by a day's worth of stubble. He appeared to be in his late 20s, with eyes the color of a summer storm and shoulders broad enough to suggest years of physical labor. "Madam," he called out, tipping his hat politely as he brought his horse to a stop several yards away, a respectful distance that Madeline noted with cautious relief. "You all right out here?" "I'm fine," she answered automatically, her Boston upbringing asserting itself even in these dire circumstances. Then, thinking better of it, she amended, "Actually, no. I've been left behind by the stagecoach." The stranger nodded slowly as if this explained everything. "I saw it pass a ways back, kicking up dust like the devil himself was chasing it." He dismounted with the fluid grace of a man who had spent most of his life in the saddle. "The name's Adam Prescott. I've got a ranch about 10 miles north of here." Madeline hesitated, then replied, "Madeline Lockhart. I was on my way to San Diego when—" She trailed off, too humiliated to explain her predicament to this stranger. Adam Prescott seemed to understand anyway. "Short on fare?" he asked, though there was no judgment in his tone, only a matter-of-fact acceptance that sometimes life didn't go according to plan. $17 short, she admitted, her pride smarting almost as much as her fear for her immediate future. The driver was unsympathetic. Adam made a sound of disgust. "That'd be Harlan Gibbs. Man's got a heart made of boot leather and twice as tough." He glanced in the direction the stagecoach had disappeared. "How far were you headed?" "San Diego. My uncle owns a general store there." Adam considered this information, absently stroking his horse's neck as he thought. "That's still a good 2 days' journey. You got people expecting you." "My uncle knows I'm coming, though not precisely when." Madeline straightened her shoulders, determined to maintain what dignity she had left. "I'll find a way to get there." The driver mentioned a trading post. Adam shook his head. "That'd be Miller's place. It's closer to 8 miles back, not 5, and no place for a lady to be staying unaccompanied." He paused, then seemed to come to a decision. "I've got some business to tend to in the next town over. If you're agreeable, I could catch up to that stagecoach and settle your fare." Madeline stared at him, taken aback by the unexpected offer. "Why would you do that for a stranger?" A ghost of a smile touched Adam's lips. "Maybe because my mother raised me to believe a gentleman doesn't leave a lady stranded in the wilderness." The smile faded, replaced by something more serious. "Or maybe because I've been on the receiving end of Harlan Gibbs's unique brand of customer service myself." "I couldn't possibly accept such charity," Madeline protested, though part of her desperately wanted to. "Not charity," Adam corrected her. "Consider it a loan. You can repay me when you're settled in San Diego." He gestured to his horse. "Thunder here's the fastest mount in 3 counties. We can catch that coach before it reaches the next station if we ride now." Madeline glanced from Adam to his horse and back again, weighing her limited options. Stay here alone, possibly for days, or trust this stranger who seemed genuinely intent on helping her. "I have no way to guarantee repayment," she said at last. "You'd be taking me entirely on faith." Adam's eyes crinkled slightly at the corners. "Faith's about all some of us have out here, Miss Lockhart." He extended his hand. "What do you say? Shall we go catch that stagecoach?" In that moment, with the California sun beating down and not another soul in sight, Madeline made the decision that would alter the course of her life forever. She reached out and took Adam Prescott's offered hand. "Yes," she said simply. "Please." With surprising gentlemanly care, Adam helped her onto his horse before mounting behind her. Madeline stiffened at the unfamiliar proximity to a man she had just met, but as thunder broke into a gallop, she found herself leaning back against Adam's solid chest out of necessity. "Hold on tight," he called over the rushing wind, and Madeline did, clutching the saddle horn as they flew across the landscape. They rode hard for nearly an hour, the rhythmic pounding of thunder's hooves and the occasional directions from Adam the only sounds between them. Madeline's thoughts raced as fast as the horse beneath her. Who was this man who would go so far out of his way for a complete stranger? What would possess him to chase down a stagecoach for someone he had never met before today? Either he was the most chivalrous man in the West, or he had motives she couldn't yet discern. Just as Madeline began to fear they had somehow missed the stagecoach altogether, Adam pointed to a cloud of dust on the horizon. "There they are," he said, a note of triumph in his voice. "Told you thunder was fast." Sure enough, the distinctive silhouette of the stagecoach appeared as they crested the next rise. Adam urged Thunder to an even faster pace, and they gradually closed the distance until they were riding parallel to the vehicle. "Harlan Gibbs!" Adam shouted, his voice carrying easily over the rattling of the stagecoach wheels. "Pull up that team!" The driver glanced over, surprise evident on his weathered face even from a distance. He made no move to slow the horses. "I said pull up," Adam repeated, more forcefully this time. To emphasize his point, he guided Thunder directly into the path of the stagecoach, forcing Gibbs to either stop or risk a collision. With a stream of colorful curses that made Madeline's ears burn, Gibbs reluctantly pulled back on the reins. The stagecoach came to a gradual halt, the passengers inside peering curiously through the windows. "What in blazes do you think you're doing, Prescott?" Gibbs demanded, his face flushed with anger. "I've got a schedule to keep." Adam dismounted smoothly, keeping one hand on Thunder's reins. "And I've got a problem with how you conduct your business, Gibbs." He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a small leather pouch. "The lady's fare." $17, you said. Gibbs's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What's your interest in this, Prescott? She ain't your kin." "My interest," Adam replied evenly, "is in making sure decent folks aren't left to die in the desert over a few dollars." He tossed the pouch up to Gibbs, who caught it reflexively. "Count it if you like. It's all there." Gibbs weighed the pouch in his palm, then tucked it away without counting. "Fine, but she still can't ride. We're full up now, picked up 2 more at the crossing back a ways." Adam's jaw tightened. "You're telling me you'd take her money but still leave her stranded? Business is business," Gibbs said with a shrug. "She can catch the next coach through." Madeline, who had remained silent throughout this exchange, felt her heart sink. After all this, she was still no closer to San Diego than before. She slid down from Thunder's back, steadying herself against his flank as her legs adjusted to solid ground again. "Then you'll refund her fare," Adam insisted, his tone making it clear this wasn't a request. The two men stared at each other, a silent battle of wills playing out under the merciless sun. Finally, Gibbs spat into the dust. "You're a damned nuisance, Prescott." He dug into his pocket and retrieved the pouch, tossing it back down. "Take it and be gone. I've lost enough time on this foolishness." Without another word, he snapped the reins and the stagecoach lurched forward, once again leaving Madeline in a cloud of dust, but this time, not alone. She turned to Adam, confusion and gratitude warring within her. "Thank you for trying. It was more than anyone else would have done." Adam pocketed the money pouch and ran a hand through his dark hair, displeasure evident in every line of his body. "This isn't right. You paid for passage to San Diego." "It seems I'm destined not to reach there today," Madeline said, trying to sound brave despite her disappointment. "Perhaps there's a town nearby where I might find lodging until the next coach comes through." Adam studied her for a long moment. "There's Silver Creek, about half a day's ride from here. It's a decent enough place, has a hotel, telegraph office, and a few shops." He hesitated, then added, "Or I could escort you to San Diego myself." "It's a 3-day journey on horseback, but Thunder's strong enough to carry us both that distance." Madeline's eyes widened at the offer. "Mr. Prescott, that's far too generous. I couldn't possibly impose, it wouldn't be an imposition," he interrupted. "I have business interests throughout the territory. I can easily find reasons to be heading towards San Diego." A faint smile touched his lips. "And it's Adam. Out here, Mr. Prescott makes me sound like I should be wearing a suit and sitting behind a banker's desk." Despite her predicament, Madeline found herself returning his smile. "Very well, Adam." His name felt strangely intimate on her lips. "But I can't accept such an extraordinary offer. Silver Creek sounds like the wisest option. I can wait there for the next stage." Adam nodded, respecting her decision even if he didn't fully agree with it. "To Silver Creek, then." He remounted Thunder and extended his hand to help her up. "We should reach it by nightfall if we keep a steady pace." As they set off toward Silver Creek, Madeline found herself gradually relaxing despite the strange circumstances. There was something about Adam Prescott that inspired confidence, a quiet strength that seemed as natural to him as breathing. "May I ask what brings you to California, Miss Lockhart?" Adam inquired after they had ridden in companionable silence for some time. Madeline hesitated, unsure how much of her story to share. "I'm seeking a fresh start," she said finally. "My parents died last winter and there was little left for me in Boston." Adam nodded, asking no further questions about what she had left behind, for which Madeline was grateful. Instead, he began pointing out landmarks and sharing stories of the region, gradually painting a picture of the life he had carved out in this wild territory. She learned that his ranch, the Double P, had been built with his own hands over the past 5 years after he'd come west following the war. He raised horses primarily, with a small herd of cattle for good measure, and had earned a reputation for fair dealing and quality stock. "The land out here changes a person," he told her as they crested a rise overlooking a spectacular vista of rolling hills and distant mountains. "It demands respect, but it gives back tenfold if you treat it right." "It's beautiful," Madeline admitted, taking in the rugged landscape that was so different from the manicured gardens and crowded streets of Boston. "But unforgiving, I imagine." "Like most things worth having," Adam agreed, his voice carrying a weight that suggested he was speaking from experience. By late afternoon, Madeline's muscles ached from the unaccustomed hours in the saddle, but she refused to complain. Her discomfort seemed a small price to pay for Adam's kindness. They stopped briefly at a small stream to rest and water Thunder, and Adam shared the provisions from his saddlebag: jerky, hardtack, and surprisingly sweet dried apples. "Not exactly what you're used to, I expect," he said as he watched her cautiously sample the jerky. Madeline chewed thoughtfully before answering. "My circumstances have changed considerably in recent months, Mr. Adam. I'm learning to adjust my expectations accordingly." Something in her tone must have revealed more than she intended, for Adam's expression softened. "The West is good for that. Everyone gets a chance to reinvent themselves out here, regardless of what they're leaving behind." As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, the first buildings of Silver Creek came into view, a modest collection of wooden structures clustered around what appeared to be a main street. Madeline felt a curious mixture of relief and disappointment. Relief that she would soon have proper lodgings and a chance to rest, but disappointment that her time with Adam Prescott was coming to an end. "Silver Creek," Adam announced unnecessarily as they approached the outskirts of town. "Not San Diego, I'm afraid, but it has its charms." They drew curious glances as they rode down the main street, an elegantly dressed woman and a rancher sharing a horse being somewhat out of the ordinary, even in a frontier town accustomed to unusual sights. Adam guided Thunder directly to a 2-story building with a sign proclaiming it the Silver Creek Hotel. "Mrs. Henderson runs a respectable establishment," Adam explained as he helped Madeline dismount. Her legs nearly buckled beneath her after the long ride, and he steadied her with a strong hand at her elbow. "She'll see you're comfortable until the next stage comes through." Madeline nodded, suddenly aware of how disheveled she must look after hours on horseback. "Thank you for everything. I don't know what would have become of me if you hadn't happened along." Adam smiled, the expression transforming his serious face. "I'm glad I was there." He reached for her carpetbag, still securely tied to Thunder's saddle, and handed it to her. Then, to her surprise, he also offered the leather pouch containing the $17. "For your fare when the next stage arrives." Madeline stared at the pouch, then back at him. "But that's your money." "You've already done far more than consider it that loan we discussed," he interrupted gently. "You can send it to the Double P once you're settled in San Diego." He paused, then added with a hint of humor, "I trust you'll remember the debt." "I certainly will," Madeline assured him, accepting the pouch with mixed emotions. "How could I possibly forget?" For a moment they stood there on the boardwalk, neither quite ready to say goodbye. Then Adam cleared his throat and stepped back, preparing to remount. "I should find lodging for myself and Thunder. The livery's just down the street." "Of course." Madeline clutched her carpetbag tighter, suddenly afraid he would disappear as quickly as he had appeared in her life. "Will you? That is, might I see you before you depart tomorrow?" Adam's eyes warmed at the question. "I'd like that. Perhaps breakfast. The hotel dining room serves a decent meal, I'm told." "Breakfast, then," Madeline agreed, a smile breaking through her fatigue. "Thank you again, Adam." With a tip of his hat and a final smile, Adam led Thunder down the street toward the livery, leaving Madeline to face Mrs. Henderson and whatever accommodations Silver Creek had to offer. The hotel proprietress proved to be a plump, efficient woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing but a kind heart that welcomed strangers. She clucked sympathetically when Madeline explained her situation, omitting certain details about her departure from Boston. "Harlan Gibbs is a menace, Mrs. Henderson declared as she showed Madeline to a small but clean room on the second floor. "Lucky for you, Adam Prescott came along. He's one of the good ones, respected all through these parts for his fair dealing." "He's been exceedingly kind," Madeline agreed, wondering why this simple statement made her cheeks warm. Mrs. Henderson gave her a knowing look. "The stage to San Diego won't be through for another 3 days. The hotel's quiet this time of year. You'll have plenty of peace to rest up." She paused at the door. "Dining room opens at 6 for breakfast. Will you be needing anything else, dear?" Madeline shook her head, overwhelmed by the events of the day. "No, thank you. This is perfect." After Mrs. Henderson departed, Madeline sat heavily on the edge of the bed, finally allowing herself to feel the full weight of exhaustion. She had begun the day as a passenger on a stagecoach headed for a new life, been abandoned in the wilderness by midday, and now found herself in a town she had never heard of, indebted to a man she had known for less than 12 hours. Life in the West, it seemed, moved at a different pace than in Boston. She washed as best she could with the pitcher and basin provided, changed into the one clean dress she had packed in her carpetbag, and lay down, expecting sleep to claim her immediately. Instead, her mind kept returning to Adam Prescott, his quiet strength, the respectful way he had treated her, the unexpected kindness that had potentially saved her life. Madeline fell asleep with his storm-gray eyes in her thoughts, and the peculiar feeling that, despite all the day's setbacks, she might be exactly where she was meant to be. Morning brought with it the sounds of a town coming to life, wagon wheels on packed dirt, merchants opening their shops, the distant lowing of cattle. Madeline dressed with extra care, taking time to arrange her hair neatly and smooth the wrinkles from her dress as best she could. She was just pinning her small cameo brooch, one of the few pieces of jewelry she had kept from her previous life, when a knock sounded at her door. "Miss Lockhart," Mrs. Henderson's voice called. "There's a gentleman asking for you in the dining room." Madeline's heart quickened inexplicably. "Thank you. Please tell him I'll be right down." She found Adam already seated at a corner table, risen to his feet at her approach. He had clearly made use of a barber shop. His jaw was clean-shaven, his dark hair neatly trimmed. He wore a fresh shirt under his well-worn leather vest, and Madeline was struck again by his rugged handsomeness. "Good morning," he greeted her, pulling out her chair. "I trust you slept well." "Very well, thank you," Madeline replied, settling into her seat. Silver Creek Hotel may not be as grand as some Boston establishments, but the bed was comfortable and the linens clean. Adam smiled as he retook his seat. High praise indeed from a Boston lady. Their conversation flowed easily over breakfast eggs, bacon, and surprisingly good biscuits with honey. Madeline found herself sharing more than she had intended about her life before coming west. Her childhood in Boston's Beacon Hill, her father's shipping business that had floundered after the war, her mother's declining health. She stopped short of mentioning Richard Thornton, the fiancé whose betrayal had been the final straw in her decision to leave Boston behind. Some wounds were still too raw to expose to the light. Adam, in turn, told her of his family's farm in Pennsylvania, his service in the Union Army during the war, and his decision to head west rather than return to a place filled with too many ghosts. "After seeing so much death," he explained, "I needed to build something instead of watching things fall apart." His eyes took on a faraway look. "The Double P isn't much compared to what some have built out here, but it's mine. Every fence post, every corral, I can look at it and know I created something good." Madeline found herself envying his certainty, his clear purpose. "That must be gratifying," she said quietly, "to see the tangible results of your labor." "It is," Adam agreed. "Though I'll admit, there are days when the solitude weighs heavy." He looked directly at her then, his gray eyes serious. "What about you, Madeline? What are you hoping to build in San Diego?" The directness of the question caught her off guard. "I'm not entirely sure," she admitted. "Security, primarily. My uncle has offered me a position in his store which will provide an income. Beyond that," she trailed off, realizing how limited her vision of the future had become. Survival had been her only goal for so long that she had forgotten to dream beyond it. Adam seemed to understand what she couldn't articulate. "Sometimes just getting through the next day is achievement enough," he said gently. "The rest comes with time." Their breakfast extended well past the usual hour as they continued talking, discovering shared interests in literature and music, and a mutual appreciation for the dramatic Western landscapes. Adam had an unexpected knowledge of Shakespeare, picked up during long winter evenings with only books for company, while Madeline surprised him with her practical understanding of business operations, learned at her father's side before his decline. It was only when Mrs. Henderson began clearing nearby tables with pointed efficiency that they realized how long they had been sitting there. "I apologize for keeping you," Adam said as they finally rose from the table. "I'm sure you have arrangements to make for your continued journey." "Nothing that can't wait," Madeline replied, reluctant to end their time together. "And you? Will you be returning to your ranch today?" Adam hesitated, seeming to consider something. "Actually, I had planned to stay another day. There's a horse auction tomorrow morning that interests me." He paused, then added with careful casualness, "I thought perhaps I might show you around Silver Creek today if you're agreeable. It's a small town, but it has its points of interest." The invitation shouldn't have pleased her as much as it did. "I would like that very much," Madeline said, ignoring the voice of propriety in her head that warned against spending too much time alone with a man she barely knew. Propriety, after all, had done little to protect her heart in Boston. The day that followed was unlike any in Madeline's previous experience. Adam guided her through Silver Creek with the easy confidence of a man who knew his place in the world. They visited the general store, where he introduced her to the proprietor, a cheerful man named Hobson, who insisted on showing Madeline his latest shipment of fabrics from back east. They stopped at the telegraph office, where Adam sent a message to his foreman about the potential horse purchase. The blacksmith shop provided an education in horseshoes and their importance, while the small lending library, a single bookshelf in the back of the newspaper office, revealed shared favorites and sparked a lively debate about the merits of Dickens versus Twain. Throughout it all, Madeline found herself relaxing in Adam's company, laughing more freely than she had in months. He treated her neither as a delicate flower nor as a curiosity, but simply as a person whose thoughts and opinions mattered. By late afternoon, they had explored most of what Silver Creek had to offer and found themselves walking along the creek that gave the town its name. The water bubbled cheerfully over smooth stones, creating a peaceful backdrop to their conversation. "I feel I should thank you again," Madeline said as they paused to watch a family of ducks navigate the current. "Not just for yesterday's rescue, but for today as well. It's been refreshing." Adam skipped a stone across the water, watching it bounce 4 times before sinking. "No thanks necessary. I've enjoyed the company." He glanced at her, a hint of vulnerability showing through his usual confidence. "It's not often I have the chance to converse with someone who can quote both Shakespeare and ledger entries with equal facility." Madeline laughed, pleased by the compliment. "A useless combination of skills," my mother always said. She believed a woman's education should focus exclusively on social graces and household management. "And yet here you are, heading to San Diego to work in a general store," Adam observed. "Your mother would be dismayed." "Thoroughly," Madeline agreed, though the thought brought more amusement than pain now. "She never understood my interest in commerce. My father, however, encouraged it. He used to say that a mind was a terrible thing to waste, regardless of whether it belonged to a man or a woman." Adam nodded approvingly. "A progressive viewpoint. My own mother ran our farm accounts with ruthless efficiency. My father could grow anything under the sun, but he couldn't add 2 columns of figures to save his life." As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the landscape, Adam reluctantly suggested they return to the hotel. "Mrs. Henderson serves dinner at 6 sharp," he explained. "And she takes a dim view of latecomers." They walked back in companionable silence, both aware that their time together was drawing to a close. Tomorrow would bring the horse auction, and the day after that, the stagecoach that would carry Madeline to San Diego. The thought sat uneasily in Madeline's mind. Just 2 days ago, reaching San Diego had been her sole focus. Now, the prospect filled her with an unexpected reluctance. She glanced at the man walking beside her, wondering if he felt any of the same conflict. Dinner at the hotel was a more formal affair than breakfast had been, with several other guests joining them in the dining room. Adam and Madeline found themselves at a table with a silver merchant from Sacramento and his wife, who dominated the conversation with tales of their recent visit to San Francisco. Madeline contributed politely to the discussion, but she was acutely aware of Adam across the table, his occasional glances meeting hers with shared amusement at the merchant's more outlandish claims. There was something intensely intimate about those brief exchanges, as if they were holding a private conversation beneath the public one. After dinner, the merchant invited everyone to join him in the parlor for brandy. But Adam declined for both of them with such smooth courtesy that Madeline found herself standing on the hotel porch with him before she quite realized what had happened. The evening was pleasantly cool, with stars beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. From somewhere down the street came the tinny sound of a piano playing in the saloon, while closer at hand, crickets provided their own symphony. "I hope you didn't mind my presumption," Adam said, leaning against the porch railing. "I thought you might prefer the fresh air to the merchant's next installment of my important acquaintances in San Francisco." Madeline laughed, moving to stand beside him. "Your instincts were correct. Though I suppose I should be taking notes, my uncle's store in San Diego might one day aspire to such exalted connections. Somehow I doubt your uncle's business practices resemble anything that man described," Adam remarked dryly. "Unless your family has a tradition of creative accounting I'm unaware of." "No creative accounting," Madeline confirmed with a smile. "Just honest work and fair prices, according to my uncle's letters." She hesitated, then added more softly, "I'm grateful for the opportunity he's offering, even if it's not quite what I had imagined for my life." Adam turned to face her, his expression serious in the dim light from the hotel windows. "What had you imagined?" The question was simple but profound, forcing Madeline to confront dreams she had carefully packed away. "I wanted to run my own business someday," she admitted. "My father's shipping company was failing by the time he died, but I had ideas for how it might have been saved diversifying into different goods, establishing new trade routes." She shook her head ruefully. The executors of his estate weren't interested in a woman's business proposals. They sold everything at a fraction of its worth to cover his debts. "Their loss," Adam said, and there was no patronizing sympathy in his tone, only genuine regret for opportunities denied. "Though perhaps San Diego's gain. Your uncle is fortunate to have someone with your mind joining his enterprise." His belief in her abilities, stated so matter-of-factly, warmed Madeline more than any flowery compliment could have. "Thank you," she said simply. They stood in silence for several moments, listening to the night sounds and watching the stars multiply overhead. Finally, Adam straightened from the railing. "I should let you rest," he said reluctantly. "The auction begins early tomorrow, and I'll need to be there at first light to examine the horses properly." Madeline nodded, equally reluctant to end their evening but aware of the proprieties. "Of course. Will I see you before you leave?" "I hope so," Adam replied, his voice low and sincere. "Perhaps we could meet for lunch after the auction concludes. There's a decent cafe near the livery." "I would like that," Madeline said, her heart beating a little faster at the prospect of seeing him again. Adam hesitated, then took her hand in his. For one breathless moment, Madeline thought he might kiss it in the European fashion. Instead, he gave it a gentle squeeze before releasing it. "Until tomorrow, then," he said softly. "Good night, Madeline." "Good night, Adam," she replied, curling her fingers around the lingering warmth of his touch as he descended the porch steps and disappeared into the gathering darkness. Back in her room, Madeline found sleep elusive despite the day's activities. Her mind kept returning to Adam, his kindness, his intelligence, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. It was foolish, she knew, to develop any attachment to a man she had known for barely 2 days, especially when their paths would soon diverge. And yet, as she finally drifted towards sleep, Madeline couldn't help wondering what might have been if they had met under different circumstances, or if San Diego weren't waiting for her just a few days' journey away. Morning came too soon, gray light filtering through thin curtains as Madeline reluctantly opened her eyes. She dressed methodically, choosing her most practical outfit for a day that would include a horse auction, an event she had never attended, but found herself curiously eager to experience. After a quick breakfast, during which she saw no sign of Adam, Madeline made her way to the auction grounds at the edge of town. The place was already buzzing with activity, ranchers inspecting stock, traders haggling over prices, and curious onlookers gathering for the entertainment value. She spotted Adam almost immediately, his tall figure distinctive even among the crowd of Western men. He was examining a chestnut mare, running experienced hands over the animal's legs while engaged in intense conversation with the handler. Not wanting to interrupt his business, Madeline hung back, content to observe. Adam moved with confidence among the horses and their owners, clearly respected by the other ranchers present. She watched as he carefully inspected several animals, making notes in a small book he carried. It was nearly noon before the auction officially began. Madeline found a place on the rough wooden benches where she could see both the horses being presented and Adam's reactions. The auctioneer was a rotund man with a booming voice and a gift for colorful descriptions that had the crowd alternately laughing and nodding in appreciation. Adam bid on 3 horses during the proceedings, winning 2, and gracefully conceding the third to a rancher from a neighboring county. His bidding style was restrained but decisive, revealing a man who knew exactly what he wanted and what it was worth. When the auction concluded, Madeline made her way toward him, navigating through dispersing groups of ranchers. Adam's face lit up when he saw her, his usual reserve momentarily forgotten. "You came," he said, sounding genuinely pleased. "I thought it might be educational," Madeline replied with a smile, "though I confess much of the terminology was beyond me." "What exactly makes a horse sound in wind and limb as opposed to merely healthy?" Adam laughed, falling into step beside her as they left the auction grounds. "A fair question. Would you like the detailed answer over lunch, please?" Madeline said, surprised to find herself genuinely interested. "I've always believed in understanding the vocabulary of any business I might encounter." The cafe Adam had suggested was indeed close to the livery, a small establishment with checked tablecloths and the heavenly aroma of fresh bread. As they were seated, Adam explained his morning's purchases with an enthusiasm that transformed his usually serious features. "The black gelding has excellent bloodlines. His sire was a Kentucky thoroughbred brought west after the war. He'll make a fine addition to my breeding program. The bay mare is a working horse, strong and steady. I've been looking for something reliable to help with the spring roundup." Madeline listened attentively, asking questions that revealed her quick understanding of business principles, even if the specific application to horse breeding was new to her. Their conversation ranged from livestock markets to the challenges of transportation in the Western territories, each finding in the other a keen mind that appreciated the practical realities of frontier commerce. "Your uncle is fortunate indeed to have you joining his business," Adam remarked as they finished their meal. "I suspect his general store will see impressive growth under your influence." Madeline felt a curious mixture of pride and uncertainty at his words. "That assumes he'll listen to my suggestions. He's been kind to offer me a position, but whether he'll value my opinions remains to be seen." Adam considered this. "Have you met him before, your uncle?" "Only once when I was a child," Madeline admitted. "He came east for my grandfather's funeral. I remember him as a serious man with very specific ideas about how things should be done." Something in Adam's expression suggested concern, though he was careful to keep his tone neutral. "Many men out here are set in their ways. It can be challenging for newcomers to introduce changes, especially when those newcomers are women, Madeline supplied with a wry smile. Yes, I'm well aware of the additional hurdles my gender presents in business matters, but I'm not without resources. Patience and persistence can accomplish a great deal over time. Adam nodded, though the concern didn't entirely leave his eyes. True enough, and intelligence like yours tends to make itself heard eventually, regardless of obstacles. Their lunch concluded too soon for Madeline's liking. As they stepped back onto the sunlit street, Adam explained that he needed to finalize the paperwork for his purchases and make arrangements for transporting the horses back to his ranch. It will likely take the remainder of the day, he said apologetically. The previous owners insist on detailed bills of sale, and the livery owner has his own procedures for boarding. Of course, Madeline replied, masking her disappointment. Business must come first. Adam hesitated, then asked, "Would you join me for dinner tonight? A proper dinner, I mean." There's a restaurant at the edge of town that serves decent food, not just the usual frontier fare. The invitation was unexpected but welcome. I would enjoy that, Madeline said, conscious of the warmth spreading through her at the prospect of another evening in his company. I'll call for you at 7 then, Adam said, his own pleasure evident in his smile. Until then, Madeline spent the afternoon exploring the few shops Silver Creek had to offer, purchasing small necessities for her continued journey and a book to read during the long stagecoach ride ahead. Yet beneath these practical activities ran an undercurrent of anticipation for the evening to come. At precisely 7 o'clock, a knock sounded at her door. Madeline opened it to find Adam standing there, freshly shaved and wearing what was clearly his best shirt and a carefully brushed jacket. The sight of him made her glad she had taken extra care with her own appearance. Wearing the one truly fine dress she had brought from Boston, a deep blue silk that complemented her eyes and showed her figure to advantage without being improper. "You look beautiful," Adam said simply, offering his arm. "Thank you," Madeline replied, accepting both the compliment and his arm with pleasure. "You look quite handsome yourself." The restaurant was a surprise, a small, well-appointed establishment with actual tablecloths and oil lamps that cast a warm glow over the polished wood furnishings. The proprietor, a Frenchman who had come west during the gold rush and stayed to feed the subsequent waves of settlers, greeted Adam by name. "Monsieur Prescott, it has been too long," he exclaimed, before turning appreciative eyes to Madeline. "And you bring with you such lovely company. This way, please." He led them to a corner table partially screened from the main dining area by a decorative wooden partition. After lighting the candle centerpiece with a flourish, he presented them with menus written in a combination of French and English that made Madeline smile. Pierre's enthusiasm for his heritage occasionally exceeds his customers' linguistic abilities, Adam explained, amusement dancing in his eyes. But his cooking is authentic enough to make one overlook such pretensions. The meal that followed was indeed exceptional by frontier standards, a savory beef stew with red wine, fresh bread still warm from the oven, and vegetables that somehow maintained their integrity despite the long journey to this remote location. Madeline savored each bite, conscious that such culinary delights might be rare in her new life. Their conversation flowed as easily as it had since their first meeting, but there was an undercurrent of something more serious tonight, a mutual awareness that tomorrow would bring changes neither seemed eager to embrace. "Have you written to your uncle to inform him of your delay?" Adam asked as they lingered over coffee and a surprisingly delicate apple tart. Madeline nodded. "I sent a telegram this afternoon. His reply came just before I prepared for dinner. He says he'll expect me when the next stage arrives and not to worry about the delay. That's good, Adam said, though his expression remained thoughtful. Did he mention the position he has in mind for you, what your duties might entail? Only that he needs assistance with the accounts and correspondence, Madeline replied, which suits my abilities well enough. Adam nodded slowly. I'm sure you'll excel at whatever tasks he assigns. It's just what? Madeline prompted when he hesitated. Adam seemed to choose his next words with care. I've been thinking about what you said about wanting to run your own business someday. It strikes me that working for your uncle while secure might not provide the opportunities you deserve. The observation was perceptive and hit close to Madeline's own unspoken concerns. Perhaps not immediately, she acknowledged, but it's a starting point. I have to begin somewhere, and family connections are what I have available. There are other possibilities, Adam said, his gaze intent now. The West is full of opportunities for those willing to see them. In a growing town like Silver Creek, for instance, there's a need for all manner of services and goods. Madeline's heart quickened at the implication. Are you suggesting I should consider staying here instead of continuing to San Diego? I'm suggesting you have options, Adam replied carefully. Your intelligence and business acumen would be valuable anywhere, including here. The candle between them flickered, casting shifting shadows across his earnest face. Madeline found herself at a crossroads she hadn't anticipated when she began her journey west one, where the practical path of security competed with the possibility of something less certain, but potentially more fulfilling. I appreciate your confidence in me, she said finally. But Silver Creek is still largely unknown to me. San Diego, at least, offers the security of family, however distant that connection might be. Adam accepted this with a nod, though something in his eyes suggested he had hoped for a different answer. Of course. Security is important, especially when one is starting anew. Their dinner concluded in a subdued mood, both aware of unspoken possibilities hanging in the air between them. Adam insisted on paying the bill, waving away Madeline's protests with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Consider it a farewell gift, he said as they left the restaurant, the night air cool against their skin. A proper send-off before tomorrow's stage takes you to San Diego. The mention of tomorrow's departure hung heavy between them as they walked slowly back toward the hotel. Neither seemed eager to reach their destination, their pace slowing as they approached the building where their paths would soon diverge. They paused at the foot of the hotel steps, the yellow light from the lobby windows spilling across the boardwalk. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the sounds of the nighttime town distant piano music, occasional laughter, the rustle of wind through nearby trees forming a backdrop to their unspoken thoughts. I want to thank you again, Madeline said at last, her voice soft in the gathering darkness. Not just for rescuing me from that Stagecoach situation, but for these past 2 days. They've meant more to me than I can properly express. Adam took her hand then, his touch gentle but sure. They've meant a great deal to me as well, Madeline. The way he said her name sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the evening chill. More than they probably should, given how brief our acquaintance has been. Madeline's breath caught at the honesty in his voice. I feel the same, she admitted, the words escaping before prudence could stop them. It's quite ridiculous, isn't it, to feel such a connection to someone I've known for only 3 days? Is it? Adam asked, moving almost imperceptibly closer. Out here, people learn to trust their instincts. Time isn't always the best measure of what matters. His face was very near now, his eyes searching hers for permission she wasn't sure she should grant, but couldn't deny. When his lips met hers, the touch was gentle, questioning a first kiss that held both restraint and promise. Madeline responded with a tentative eagerness that surprised her free hand coming to rest against the solid warmth of his chest. The kiss deepened for a breathless moment before Adam drew back, his expression a mixture of wonder and regret. "I shouldn't have done that," he said, though he made no move to release her hand. "You're leaving tomorrow, and I've no right to complicate your decisions." "Perhaps I wanted my decisions complicated," Madeline replied softly, surprising herself with her boldness. The proper Boston lady she had been raised to be would never have admitted such a thing, but that version of Madeline Lockhart seemed increasingly distant with each day in the West. Adam's smile was achingly tender. "In that case, I'm honored to have provided the complication." He raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles before reluctantly releasing her. "But it's still best if I say good night now, while I can still bring myself to do so." Madeline nodded, understanding the wisdom of his restraint even as part of her wished for less propriety and more of the breathless connection they had just shared. "Will I see you before the stage departs tomorrow?" "Yes," Adam promised. "I'll be there to see you off properly." "The stage leaves at noon." "Then good night, Adam," she said, gathering her composure around her like a cloak. "Until tomorrow." "Until tomorrow," he echoed, his eyes following her as she ascended the hotel steps and disappeared inside. In her room, Madeline stood at the window for a long time, watching as Adam eventually walked away from the hotel, his figure gradually swallowed by the darkness. Her lips still tingled from their kiss, and her mind raced with possibilities she had not allowed herself to consider until now. Was she making a mistake in continuing to San Diego? Was there truly opportunity for her here in Silver Creek? Or was she simply being swayed by an unexpected attraction to a man she barely knew? Sleep, when it finally came, brought no clear answers, only dreams of storm-gray eyes and choices hovering just beyond her reach. Morning arrived with an unwelcome clarity, forcing Madeline to confront the reality of her departure. She packed her few belongings methodically, her movements automatic while her thoughts remained turbulent. By the time she descended to the hotel dining room for breakfast, she had made no firm decisions beyond the practical necessity of checking out and ensuring her place on the stagecoach was secure. Adam was not present for the morning meal, a fact that both disappointed and relieved her. Perhaps it was better this way, a clean break, with only a brief goodbye at the stagecoach to endure. After breakfast, Madeline settled her account with Mrs. Henderson, who seemed genuinely sorry to see her go. "You've brought some life to our little hotel," the proprietress said warmly. "It's been a pleasure having you, even under such unusual circumstances. And if you ever find yourself passing through Silver Creek again, there'll always be a room for you here." "Thank you," Madeline replied, touched by the woman's kindness. "I've enjoyed my stay more than I could have anticipated." With her carpetbag in hand and her fare secured in her reticule, Madeline made her way to the stagecoach office shortly before noon. The vehicle was already waiting, the driver thankfully not Harlan Gibbs, this time loading mail bags and securing luggage on the roof. Several other passengers milled about, preparing for the journey: a middle-aged couple, a salesman with his sample case, and a young man who appeared to be a student or clerk returning from some business in the north. Madeline exchanged polite nods with her future traveling companions, her eyes scanning the street for any sign of Adam. As the driver called for passengers to board, Madeline's heart sank. Perhaps Adam had decided a clean break was best after all. Perhaps last night's kiss had been nothing more than a momentary impulse, already regretted in the cold light of day. She was just about to climb into the stagecoach when the sound of hoofbeats made her turn. Adam was riding toward them at a gallop, pulling Thunder to a stop in a swirl of dust that had the other passengers stepping back in alarm. "Madeline," he called, dismounting with the fluid grace she had come to admire. "I thought I might miss you." Relief and joy flooded through her at the sight of him. "The driver was just calling for us to board." Adam nodded, slightly out of breath as he approached. "I know. I was delayed at the livery. There was an issue with one of the horses I purchased yesterday." He glanced at the waiting stagecoach, then back to her, his expression intent. "I had to see you before you left." "I'm glad you did," Madeline said sincerely. "I didn't want to leave without saying goodbye properly." "That's not why I'm here," Adam said, his voice low and urgent. "Or not the only reason, at least." He took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for something momentous. "I know this is sudden madness, really, given how briefly we've known each other, but I couldn't let you leave without asking if you might consider staying." Madeline's heart seemed to stop for a moment before resuming at double speed. "Staying in Silver Creek," Adam clarified, the words coming faster now. "Not necessarily forever, just long enough to see if what's starting between us might grow into something worth pursuing. Mrs. Henderson mentioned that Hobson at the general store is looking for someone with a head for figures to help expand his business. It wouldn't be your own enterprise, not yet, but it would be a position where your abilities would be valued." Madeline stared at him, overwhelmed by the possibilities suddenly unfolding before her. "You spoke to Mrs. Henderson and Mr. Hobson about me?" Adam had the grace to look slightly abashed. "I hope you don't mind. I wanted to know if there might be real opportunities here for you, not just my wishful thinking." His expression grew more serious. "I'm not asking you to change your plans solely for me. That wouldn't be fair to either of us. But if there's a chance, even a small one, that you might find both professional fulfillment and—" He hesitated, then finished simply, "and personal happiness here, I'd like you to consider it." "All aboard," the stagecoach driver called impatiently. "We're running behind schedule as it is." Madeline glanced at the waiting coach, then back at Adam, her mind racing. She had planned her journey to San Diego for months, had arranged everything around reaching her uncle's store and the security it promised. To abandon that plan now, based on a connection formed over just 3 days, seemed like the height of irresponsibility, and yet— "What about my uncle?" she asked, the practical part of her mind still functioning despite the tumult of her emotions. "He's expecting me. He's made arrangements." "Send him a telegram," Adam suggested. "Explain that you've been offered a position here that better suits your ambitions. If he truly cares for your welfare, he'll understand." "Last passenger," the driver called, clearly reaching the limits of his patience. "Get in or stay behind. Makes no difference to me, but we're leaving now." It was the moment of decision. Madeline looked at the stagecoach, with its promise of the safe, expected future she had planned, and then at Adam, whose eyes held possibilities she had not dared to imagine. "What are you really offering me, Adam?" she asked quietly, needing absolute clarity before she could make such a momentous choice. Adam took her free hand in both of his. "A chance," he said simply. "A chance to see if Silver Creek might become home for you. A chance to explore whatever is growing between us without the pressure of immediate promises. And my word that if, after a reasonable time, you find this isn't where you're meant to be, I'll personally ensure you reach San Diego safely." The stagecoach driver cracked his whip, the horses stamping impatiently. "Now or never, miss." Madeline made her decision in that instant, with a clarity that felt like stepping into sunlight after too long in shadow. "Mr. Driver," she called, "it seems I won't be joining you today after all. Please inform the station master that my seat is available for another passenger." The driver shrugged, clearly indifferent to her change of plans. "Suit yourself." With a final call to his horses, he set the stagecoach in motion, leaving Madeline standing in the street with her carpetbag in one hand and Adam's warm grasp on the other. For a moment, they stood in silence, watching as the vehicle rumbled away toward San Diego and the future Madeline had just declined to claim. Then Adam turned to her, his expression a mixture of joy and disbelief. "You're staying," he said, as if needing to hear it confirmed. Madeline nodded, a smile breaking through her own bewilderment at her impulsive decision. "I'm staying, at least for now." Adam's answering smile was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "I promise you won't regret it," he said fervently. "Whatever happens between us, I'll make sure you have real opportunities here." "I believe you," Madeline replied, and realized with some surprise that she truly did. In the brief time she had known Adam Prescott, he had demonstrated integrity and consideration that inspired her trust far more than any flowery declarations could have done. Standing in the dusty main street of Silver Creek, with curious onlookers beginning to take notice of their exchange, Madeline felt a curious sensation of rightness settle over her. Perhaps this wasn't the destination she had planned, but something in her recognized it as the place she was meant to be. "Now what?" she asked, practical even in this moment of romantic impulse. Adam laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Now we get you properly settled, Mrs. Henderson will be delighted to have you stay on, I'm sure, and I'll introduce you to Hobson this afternoon to discuss the position at his store." His expression softened. "And perhaps, if you're agreeable, we might have dinner again tonight, to celebrate your new beginning in Silver Creek." "I would like that very much," Madeline said, tucking her hand into the crook of his arm as they began walking back toward the hotel. With each step, San Diego receded further from her thoughts, replaced by the immediate reality of Silver Creek and the man beside her. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity as Madeline established herself in Silver Creek. Mrs. Henderson proved delighted to have her as a long-term resident, offering her a reduced rate on a slightly larger room with its own small sitting area, perfect for a lady of quality, as she put it. Mr. Hobson at the general store welcomed Madeline's business acumen with enthusiasm bordering on relief. "Been needing someone with a proper head for figures," he confessed during their initial meeting. "My wife used to handle all the accounts, God rest her soul, but since she passed last winter, it's been a proper mess. If you can sort it out and help me expand the store's offerings, I'll consider myself fortunate indeed." The position came with a modest salary that was nonetheless sufficient for Madeline's needs, especially with the reduced lodging costs Mrs. Henderson insisted upon. More importantly, it offered the opportunity to apply her business knowledge in meaningful ways, ordering inventory, corresponding with suppliers, and gradually introducing new products that appealed to Silver Creek's growing population. As promised, Madeline sent a lengthy telegram to her uncle in San Diego, explaining her change of plans and expressing gratitude for his original offer. His reply, when it came, was brief but not unkind. "Your decision understood. Position filled by another. Wish you success in Silver Creek. Door remains open should circumstances change." The knowledge that she had not burned that bridge completely was reassuring, though Madeline found herself thinking of San Diego less and less as the days passed. Silver Creek, with its mix of frontier practicality and emerging civilization, suited her in ways she hadn't anticipated. The townspeople were generally welcoming, particularly once they saw the improvements she brought to Hobson's store. And then there was Adam. True to his word, he had made no demands beyond her company, which they both sought with increasing frequency. He had business in town at least twice a week, and those days invariably concluded with dinner together, sometimes at Pierre's restaurant, sometimes at the hotel dining room, and occasionally, as summer arrived in earnest, as picnics by the creek that gave the town its name. On days when Adam couldn't come to town, Madeline found herself watching the northern road with an anticipation that both amused and alarmed her. She was falling in love, had perhaps already fallen with a man she had known for barely 2 months. The Boston society matrons of her mother's circle would have been scandalized by such haste, but here in the West, life moved at a different pace. 3 months after her decision to stay in Silver Creek, Adam invited Madeline to visit his ranch for the first time. "It's nothing grand," he warned as he helped her into the wagon he had brought specifically for her comfort. "Just a simple spread with a house I built myself, but I'd like you to see it." The journey took most of the morning, the wagon following winding trails through increasingly rugged country. As they crested a final hill, the Double P spread out before them a sturdy log house with a wide porch, several outbuildings, corrals containing horses of various colors and breeds, and beyond them, rolling pastureland where cattle grazed contentedly. "Adam, it's wonderful," Madeline said with genuine admiration as he helped her down from the wagon. "When you said you built something with your own hands, I had no idea it was so substantial." Adam's pleasure at her approval was evident in his smile. "5 years of work," he acknowledged, "and still plenty to do. But it's becoming what I envisioned." He gave her a tour of the property, from the barn with its row of stalls for his prized breeding stock to the bunkhouse where his small crew of ranch hands stayed. The men tipped their hats respectfully when introduced, though Madeline didn't miss the curious glances they exchanged. Clearly, Adam Prescott bringing a lady to visit was an unusual occurrence. The house itself was the highlight of the tour, a solidly constructed building with 4 rooms downstairs and 2 above. The furniture was simple but well made, and while there was a distinct masculine quality to the decor, Madeline could see the potential for creating a true home here. "The kitchen's basic," Adam explained as he showed her the large room at the back of the house, dominated by a cast iron stove and a substantial table that could seat at least 8. "I'm no cook, so the ranch hands take turns preparing meals when we're all here. Most days I fend for myself." Madeline ran her hand along the table's smooth surface, noting the quality of the wood. "It's a lovely space. With the right touches, it could be quite comfortable." Something in Adam's expression shifted at her words, becoming more intent. "I was hoping you might think so," he said quietly. "I brought you here today for a reason beyond just showing you the ranch." Madeline's heart quickened as Adam moved closer, taking both her hands in his. Over the past months, their courtship had progressed with a careful respect that she appreciated, but occasionally found frustrating. Their kisses had grown more passionate, but Adam had always maintained the proprieties, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. "Madeline," he began, his voice steady despite the emotion evident in his eyes. "3 months ago, I asked you to stay in Silver Creek on the basis of possibilities, professional opportunities, and a connection between us that seemed worth exploring. I made no promises then because it would have been presumptuous, given how briefly we had known each other." He paused, his thumbs tracing gentle circles on the backs of her hands. "But I've come to know you now, your intelligence, your courage, your determination to build something meaningful with your life. And I find myself more certain with each passing day that what I feel for you is not just admiration or attraction, but love. Deep, abiding love that I want to build a life around." Madeline's breath caught as Adam released one of her hands to reach into his pocket, withdrawing a small velvet box that he opened to reveal a simple but elegant ring with a single diamond catching the light. "This was my mother's," he explained softly. "The one truly valuable thing she left behind. She made me promise I would only give it to a woman who embodied the qualities she most valued: strength, intelligence, and a kind heart. You are that woman, Madeline." He knelt then, still holding the open ring box. "I'm asking you to make Silver Creek your permanent home, not just the town, but here at the Double P as my wife. I love you, Madeline Lockhart. Will you marry me?" Tears blurred Madeline's vision as she looked down at this man who had quite literally chased after her on that fateful day, who had respected her ambitions and supported her independence, even while hoping she might choose to share his life. "Yes," she whispered, her voice stronger as she repeated, "Yes, Adam, I will marry you." Joy transformed Adam's face as he rose to his feet, carefully sliding the ring onto her finger before drawing her into an embrace that conveyed all the passion and tenderness they had been gradually discovering in each other over the past months. Their kiss was a promise, a celebration, and the beginning of a shared future neither had imagined when fate first brought them together on a dusty road outside Silver Creek. The wedding took place 6 weeks later, a simple ceremony in Silver Creek's newly constructed church, followed by a celebration that brought together the entire community. Mrs. Henderson cried openly throughout the service, while Mr. Hobson beamed with avuncular pride, having come to regard Madeline as the daughter he had never had. Adam's ranch hands attended in their Sunday best, uncomfortable in stiff collars but genuine in their good wishes for their boss and his bride. Even Madeline's uncle sent a telegram of congratulations, along with a generous wedding gift of household linens that suggested his mercantile instincts remained sharp despite the distance. The Double P welcomed its new mistress with the changing of the seasons, autumn bringing a golden light to the landscape as Madeline settled into her role as Adam's wife. The transition from town life to the relative isolation of the ranch presented challenges, but Madeline approached them with the same determination she brought to everything. She continued to work with Mr. Hobson 1 day a week, keeping her hand in the business while gradually training a local girl to take over more of her responsibilities. The rest of her time was devoted to transforming the solid but sparse ranch house into a true home, adding touches that reflected both her Eastern refinement and her growing appreciation for Western practicality. Adam watched her efforts with a mixture of amusement and admiration, occasionally teasing her about bringing Boston civilization to his frontier outpost. But he never interfered, recognizing that the changes she made were not just about aesthetics, but about claiming her place in this new life they were building together. Their first Christmas as a married couple brought a heavy snowfall that isolated the ranch for nearly a week. Rather than feeling trapped, Madeline reveled in the enforced intimacy, using the time to learn more of Adam's history, the stories he rarely shared about his experiences during the war, his journey west, and the early struggles to establish the Double P. In return, she told him of her childhood in Boston, her father's influence on her business interests, and even with some difficulty, the betrayal by her former fiancé that had precipitated her journey west. "He married my cousin for her inheritance," Madeline explained as they sat before the fire on Christmas Eve, her head resting against Adam's shoulder. "After assuring me for months that he loved me despite my father's financial difficulties." Adam's arm tightened around her. "His loss," he said simply, "and very definitely my gain." Madeline smiled, turning to look up at her husband's face, so dear to her now that she could hardly remember a time when she hadn't known every line and expression. I used to think his betrayal was the worst thing that could have happened to me. Now I see it was necessary. It set me on the path that led to you. Spring brought new life to the double P calves in the pastures, foals in the stables, and the news that the ranch would welcome its most important arrival that autumn. When Madeline told Adam she was expecting their child, his joy was tempered only by a fierce protectiveness that had her laughing even as she was touched by his concern. "I'm pregnant, not made of glass," she reminded him when he insisted she rest more and avoid the more strenuous household tasks. "Women have been bearing children on the frontier since long before we arrived." "Not my wife," Adam countered, his expression serious despite the twinkle in his eyes. "Not with my child. Humor me in this, Madeline." She did, to a point, recognizing that his protectiveness came from love rather than any doubt in her capabilities. As summer waned and her condition became more pronounced, Madeline found herself grateful for Adam's foresight in hiring additional help around the house, a young widow from town who came 3 days a week to assist with the heavier work. Their son, James Adam Prescott, arrived on a crisp October morning after a labor that tested Madeline's strength, but never her determination. When the local midwife placed the squalling infant in her arms, Madeline felt a love so overwhelming it brought tears to her eyes. "He's perfect," Adam whispered, his voice rough with emotion as he sat beside her on the bed, one finger gently tracing their son's tiny features, just like his mother. Parenthood brought new dimensions to their relationship, deepening their bond even as it challenged them with sleepless nights and the constant adjustments required by a growing family. James proved to be a healthy, curious child with his father's gray eyes and his mother's determination, a combination that kept both parents on their toes as he began to explore the world around him. The double P prospered under their joint stewardship. Adam's breeding program produced horses that commanded increasingly high prices throughout the territory, while Madeline's business acumen helped maximize profits and identify new markets. 3 years after their marriage, they were able to purchase additional land adjoining the original property, expanding their operations significantly. Mr. Hobson, seeing the success they had achieved together, approached Madeline with an unexpected proposition as she prepared to leave the store one day. "Been thinking about retiring," he confided. "These old bones aren't what they used to be, and my nephew back east keeps writing about how I should come live with his family." Madeline expressed appropriate concern, but Hobson waved it away. "Don't fret about me, Mrs. Prescott. I've had a good run here. But I'd hate to see the store go to some stranger who doesn't understand what Silver Creek needs." He fixed her with a meaningful look. "Been wondering if you and that husband of yours might be interested in taking it over. Not as a charity, I'd expect a fair price, but I'd feel better knowing it was in capable hands." The offer was tempting, particularly as it aligned with Madeline's original ambition to own a business. Yet she hesitated, aware of the demands that running both the ranch and the store would place on their family life, especially with James still so young and the possibility of more children in their future. That evening, she discussed Hobson's proposition with Adam over dinner, expecting him to share her practical concerns. To her surprise, he was immediately supportive. "You should do it," he said without hesitation. "It's what you've wanted since before we met to run your own business. The ranch is stable enough now that I can manage without your daily input, and James is old enough to understand that his mother has important work in town." Madeline studied her husband's face, seeing nothing but sincerity in his expression. "You truly wouldn't mind?" "It would mean less time here at the ranch, more responsibilities for both of us. Adam reached across the table to take her hand. Madeline, when I asked you to stay in Silver Creek 3 years ago, it wasn't just because I was falling in love with you. It was because I saw your potential, what you could achieve if given the right opportunities. I never intended for marriage to limit those possibilities. His words warmed her heart, even as they reinforced her own conviction that she had chosen wisely when she decided to stay that day. I love you, Adam Prescott, she said simply. More than I ever thought possible. And I love you, he replied, his smile tender. Enough to know that your happiness includes pursuing your own ambitions alongside our life together. With Adam's blessing and active support, Madeline negotiated terms with Mr. Hobson that were fair to both parties. By the time James celebrated his 4th birthday, Lockhart and Prescott General Mercantile was firmly established as Silver Creek's primary supplier of goods, with a reputation for quality merchandise and fair prices that drew customers from surrounding settlements as well. The balance wasn't always easy to maintain. There were days when Madeline felt pulled between her responsibilities at the store and her duties as a wife and mother. Yet, whenever doubt crept in, she would remember that fateful day when a stagecoach had left her stranded in the wilderness, and a stranger on horseback had ridden to her rescue. That rescue hadn't just been about $17 and a missed stagecoach connection. It had been about finding a path she hadn't known. She was seeking one that led to a love deeper and more fulfilling than anything she had imagined possible. 10 years after that chance encounter, as Madeline stood on the porch of their expanded ranch house watching Adam teach James and their daughter, Elizabeth, to ride their new ponies, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The Boston society girl who had boarded a stagecoach west in search of security would hardly recognize the confident woman she had become, a respected businesswoman, a beloved wife, a mother, and an integral part of a community that had welcomed her as one of their own. "Mama, look." 7-year-old Elizabeth called, her face alight with pride as she guided her pony in a careful circle. "I'm riding by myself." "Well done, sweetheart," Madeline called back, her heart full as she watched her daughter's growing confidence. Adam caught her eye across the yard, his smile as warm and reassuring as it had been that first day. In that moment, Madeline knew with absolute certainty that her impulsive decision to stay in Silver Creek had been the wisest choice of her life. She had been thrown off a stagecoach for want of $17, but what she had gained in return was beyond any price: a true home, a loving family, and a life rich in purpose and possibility. All because a cowboy had ridden after her and settled her fare, setting in motion a love story that would continue to unfold in all the best ways for many years to come. As the sun began to set over the Double P, casting long shadows across the land they had nurtured together, Madeline stepped off the porch to join her family, her heart overflowing with gratitude for the unexpected journey that had led her home.